The fork froze halfway to my mouth when my father's fist slammed the mahogany table. "You have 2 days to get your stuff out." The crystal wine glasses trembled. My mother's pearls clicked softly against her collarbone as she adjusted them, avoiding my eyes. My sister Celine sat across from me in her designer dress, lips curled into something between a smile and a sneer. I set the fork down slowly, the scrape of metal against fine china, the only sound in that suffocating dining room. 2 days, Dad repeated, his voice shaking with anger. "The house belongs to Celine now. You can take your tools and personal belongings. Everything else stays." 58 years I'd lived, and I thought I'd seen every shade of betrayal. I was wrong. The roasted lamb sat untouched on my plate. The handmade wooden clock I'd brought as a gift, carved from oak taken from Dad's very first construction site, sat ignored at the center of the table, like a silent witness to my humiliation. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. "Dad, I don't understand," I started. "You've done nothing with your life." His weathered hand slapped the table again, making Mom's wine slosh dangerously close to the rim. "You refused to join the company. Refused to settle down. Refused every chance I gave you. I won't let you waste this family's fortune." Waste it. The word hung in the air like smoke from a put-out candle. I'd spent 30 years working beside him in the workshop he and I built together when I was 17. Every nail we'd hammered. Every beam we'd raised. Every lesson about integrity he taught me while sawdust settled in our hair. All of it apparently meant nothing. Mom finally spoke, her voice thin and practiced. "Sweetheart, you'll need to find your own place soon anyway. The estate transfer is already in motion. Celine and Colton will be moving in next week." Colton, my sister's husband, shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but said nothing. He never did. Celine swirled her wine, examining me like I was a stain on expensive upholstery. "Have you even started looking for apartments, Darian? Or were you planning to mooch off Mom and Dad forever?" My jaw clenched, but I didn't raise my voice. Didn't argue. Didn't beg. I simply looked at each of them. My father who'd taught me to build, my mother who'd once bandaged my scraped knees, my sister who'd shared a bunk bed with me in our old house before money changed everything. "All right," I said quietly. The words seemed to confuse them. Celine's eyebrows rose. Mom's mouth opened slightly, as if she'd been prepared for a fight and didn't know what to do with surrender. "All right." Dad frowned. "That's it." I picked up my napkin, folded it carefully, and placed it beside my untouched plate. "You said 2 days. I'll be out in 2 days." I stood, chair scraping softly against hardwood floors that I'd helped refinish 5 summers ago. "Darian," Mom started, but I was already walking toward the door. Behind me, I heard Celine laugh. That sharp, brittle sound that had grated on my nerves since we were kids. "Well, that was easier than expected," she said. I paused in the doorway, hand on the frame. Didn't turn around. 2 days, I repeated softly. "That's all I'll need." Something in my tone made the laughter stop. I walked through the house that held 40 years of my memories, past the family photos where I was always slightly out of frame, past the workshop door that still had our height marks scratched into the wood, past everything they thought was theirs to give away. The night air hit my face as I stepped onto the porch. 2 days. They had no idea what I'd found 6 months ago, hidden in Grandfather's old safe in the basement. The envelope with my name on it. The letter in his shaking handwriting. The deed that changed everything. I'd kept quiet about it, hoping I'd never need to use it. They'd just made that choice for me. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marceline Grant, my lawyer. She answered on the second ring. "Darian? It's late." "File the papers," I said simply. "All of them. First thing tomorrow morning." A pause. Then her voice came back sharp and ready. "You're sure?" I looked back at the house, at the warm lights glowing in windows that would soon go dark with truth. "They gave me 2 days to leave," I said. "So, let's make sure those are the most important 2 days of their lives." Have you ever been betrayed by the people you trusted most? Drop a comment below, and let me know what you would have done. I was 7 years old the first time Dad let me hold a real hammer. Not a toy. Not a plastic thing from some discount store. A real carpenter's hammer with a worn wooden handle that had shaped itself to his grip over 20 years. Feel that weight, he'd said, his calloused hand guiding mine. That's responsibility, son. Every nail you drive, you're building something that'll outlast you. We were standing in what would become our workshop, just a concrete slab and dreams back then. Mom had packed us sandwiches. Celine was inside watching cartoons, already bored of anything that required dirt under her fingernails. But I stayed. Through every weekend, every summer, every moment Dad would let me. Grandfather was there too in those early days, before the cancer took him. He'd sit on an overturned bucket, whittling small wooden animals while Dad and I worked. Your daddy builds houses, Grandfather told me once, pressing a carved owl into my palm. But you, Darian, you're gonna build something more. I can see it in how you work. Patient. Careful. Like you're listening to the wood. I kept that owl on my workshop shelf for 40 years. The memory burned now as I sat in that same workshop, the night of the dinner still thick in my throat. Everything looked the same. Dad's old vice grip mounted to the bench. The smell of sawdust and motor oil. The height marks on the doorframe. Mine stopped at 16 when I'd finally passed Dad's. But it all felt hollow. Because somewhere between those childhood days and tonight's humiliation, something had shifted. Dad stopped teaching and started demanding. Mom stopped asking about my projects and started comparing me to Celine's achievements. My sister stopped being my annoying sidekick and became a stranger in expensive clothes. The workshop phone, an old landline Dad insisted on keeping, rang at 6 a.m. Celine's voice dripped through the receiver. Just making sure you're packing, big brother. Colton's already hired movers for next week. We're thinking of turning your workshop into a yoga studio. My grip tightened on the phone. A yoga studio. All this space wasted on dusty tools? Such a shame. But don't worry, we'll donate your stuff to Goodwill. Tax write-off. She laughed. That same brittle sound from dinner. I hung up without responding. My phone buzzed. A text from Marceline. Papers filed. Court opens at 9. Everything's in motion. I looked around the workshop one more time. At the table Dad and I built when I was 17. At the blueprint for his first commercial building, framed on the wall. At 40 years of memories they thought they could erase, with a 2-day deadline. They'd forgotten something crucial. Grandfather hadn't. 6 months ago, I'd been cleaning the basement, something no one else bothered with. Behind old paint cans and boxes of Christmas decorations, I found Grandfather's safe. The combination was his birthday. He'd told me once, decades ago, while we were fishing. Important things should be protected, but not from the people who matter, he'd said. I'd remembered. Inside the safe. Property deeds, old family photos, and one sealed envelope with my name written in Grandfather's shaking handwriting. To the one who still works with his hands. My hands had trembled opening it. The letter was dated 3 months before he died, written in the hospital probably, judging by how the ink wavered. Darian, if you're reading this, it means the family's forgotten what we built this on. Not money. Not appearances. Work. Real work. The kind that leaves sawdust in your hair and pride in your chest. Your father's a good man, but success has a way of changing people. Your sister. Well, she was always your mother's daughter. But you're mine. This deed transfers majority ownership of Low Construction to you upon your father's retirement or death. It was never voided because I made sure it couldn't be. They'll try to take everything from you someday. When they do, remember, builders don't just raise walls. We raise foundations. And this family's foundation has always been you. I'd sat on that basement floor for 2 hours, crying like I hadn't since Grandfather's funeral. For 6 months, I'd kept quiet, hoping Dad would come around, hoping they'd see me, really see me. Tonight's dinner proved they never would. I pulled out the deed now, unfolding the yellowed paper carefully. The legal language was dense, but the core was clear. 51% ownership of Low Construction, now worth millions, transferred to Darian Harold Low. My full name, Grandfather's middle name. the one Dad had given me and then seemed to forget. A car pulled into the driveway. Through the workshop window, I watched Celine and Colton arrive, probably to gloat some more. But I didn't move, didn't rush. Just sat there in Grandfather's old chair, surrounded by tools that knew my hands better than my family did. Let them come. They wanted me out in 2 days? They had no idea I'd already started counting down to something much bigger. What would you do if you discovered your family had been planning to erase you? Tell me in the comments. The wooden clock sat on the passenger seat of my truck as I drove back to the house the next morning. I'd spent 3 months making it, every detail carved by hand. The oak came from Dad's very first construction site, a small office building on Maple Street he'd built 40 years ago. They demolished it last year, but I'd salvaged a beam, turned it into something that would last. The clock face showed Roman numerals. The hands were brushed copper. Inside, a real mechanical movement, none of that cheap quartz stuff. Every hour, it chimed softly, like a heartbeat. I'd engraved the back. Time builds everything, even families. DL. It was supposed to be a peace offering, a reminder of what we used to be. Now it felt like evidence. I found Mom in the kitchen, arranging flowers in a crystal vase. She looked up when I entered, and for just a second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe. Or just surprise I'd come back. Darian. You're here early. Came to get some boxes from the garage. I set the clock on the counter between us. And to give you this. Made it for Dad's birthday, but figure now's as good a time as any. She touched the clock gently, fingers tracing the carved edges. It's beautiful. You always were so talented with your hands. Guess that doesn't count for much. Her hand pulled back like I'd burned her. That's not fair. Isn't it? I leaned against the counter, keeping my voice level. 2 days, Mom. That's what you gave me. In the house I helped build. The workshop Dad and I made together. 2 days to pack up 40 years like I'm some tenant who forgot to pay rent. Your father. Dad's scared. I interrupted. Scared of dying. Scared of losing control. I get it. But you? You always saw through his temper. You used to tell me, your father barks, but he doesn't bite. Remember? Her eyes glistened. Things are complicated now. They're only complicated because Celine made them that way. Your sister has been very helpful. Helpful. I laughed, bitter. She shows up with lawyers and fake concern, and suddenly I'm the family disappointment? I was here, Mom. Every day. Bringing Dad his favorite soup. Fixing things around the house. Sitting with him when he couldn't sleep after the stroke. We know that. Then why am I being erased? The question hung there, sharp and accusing. Mom's hands twisted together. Your father thinks we think. Celine's more prepared to handle the estate. She has a business degree, a stable marriage, a plan. And I have what? Nothing. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. I picked up the clock. You know what this is made from? Dad's first building. The one he always talked about. My legacy, he called it. I saved a piece before they tore it down. Thought he'd appreciate the symbolism. I'm sure he will. He won't even look at it, Mom. Just like he doesn't look at me anymore. I walked toward the door, clock under my arm. Darian, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. Your father does love you. He's not himself right now. Maybe this is exactly who he is. And I was too busy building things to notice. I left her standing there, surrounded by expensive furniture and fresh flowers and the hollow echo of a family falling apart. The workshop felt safer. Always had. I set the clock on my workbench and just stared at it. All those hours. All that care. All that hope it might make a difference. My phone buzzed. Marceline again. Judge approved expedited processing. Documents will be official by tomorrow afternoon. Still sure about this? I looked around the workshop. At the corner where Grandfather used to sit. At the wall where Dad had hung my first successful birdhouse when I was 8. At the door where he'd taught me to measure twice, cut once. More sure than I've ever been, I typed back. Because here's the thing about building. You learn to read the structure. You see where the foundation's weak. where the load-bearing walls are. This family's foundation had been crumbling for years. I'd just been too loyal to admit it.
But now?
Now, they'd force my hand. 2 days, they'd said. In 2 days, they'd learn what happens when you try to demolish the only person holding everything together. Ever given someone a gift they didn't deserve?
Drop a comment about it.
Grandfather's safe had been hidden behind a false wall in the basement, covered by boxes of old tax returns nobody'd looked at in decades. I remember the day I found it like it was yesterday, not 6 months ago. I'd been down there looking for Dad's old fishing gear. He'd been talking about going to the lake, one of those promises sick people make when they're trying to feel normal again. Mom had said it was somewhere in the basement storage. Instead, I'd found rot. Water damage from a pipe leak nobody'd noticed. Boxes soaked through. Papers ruined. I'd spent hours hauling the mess out, and that's when I saw it. The wall panel sitting wrong, slightly buckled. Behind it, the safe. Military green, probably from the 70s. Grandfather's name stamped on a faded label. The combination had come to me like muscle memory. His birthday. March 17th, 28, St. Patrick's Day baby. He used to joke. Lucky Irish, though he was about as Irish as cornbread. The dial clicked. The door swung open. Inside, history. Property deeds to the original family home. Stock certificates from companies that didn't exist anymore. Photos of grandfather and his father, both in work clothes, covered in construction dust. And the envelope. That damn envelope with my name on it. I'd known right then my life was about to change. You feel it sometimes, that shift. Like standing in a doorway between 2 rooms, and you know once you step through, you can't go back. Grandfather's letter had been 3 pages. His handwriting shaky but determined, like he'd fought through pain to finish it. The first page was memories. Stories about teaching me to use tools. Pride in how I'd stuck with the work when Celine had given up after one splinter. How I'd reminded him of his own father, quiet, steady, building things that lasted. The second page was warning. About how success corrupts. How my dad had changed after the business took off. How Mom had gotten swept up in appearances. How Celine had learned to manipulate instead of create. The third page was the bombshell. I'm transferring controlling interest of Low Construction to you, Darian. Not because your father doesn't deserve it, he does. He built something incredible, but he's forgotten the foundation it stands on. Workers, craftsmanship, integrity. You still remember. This deed is legal, notarized, and filed with the county. Your father doesn't know. Your mother doesn't know. I'm trusting you to use this wisely. Not as a weapon. As a reminder. When the time comes, and it will, you'll know what to do. The deed had been paper-clipped to the letter. Dated 15 years ago. My name typed clearly. Darian Harold Lowe, 51% ownership of Low Construction, LLC. I'd cried that day. Sitting on the cold basement floor, surrounded by ruined boxes and family secrets, I'd cried like a kid. Not from joy. From grief. Because I'd known even then it meant someday I'd have to choose. Between loyalty and survival. Between family and truth. I'd hoped that day would never come. Now, sitting in the workshop with 1 day left on their deadline, I pulled the deed out again. Touched the raised notary seal. Read grandfather's signature. Bold despite his shaking hands. My phone showed texts from Celine. Found some great furniture for your old room. Very modern. Colton wants to know if you're taking the workbench, or if we can scrap it. Mom said you were weird at breakfast. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't respond. Just sat there with grandfather's letter, reading it for probably the 100th time. When the time comes, and it will, you'll know what to do. He'd been right. I knew exactly what to do. Marceline called at noon. Everything's processed. Judge signed off. As of 3 p.m. today, you're officially majority owner of Low Construction, all subsidiaries, and all properties held under the corporate umbrella. That includes the house. The house. I'd known about the business, but your father transferred the deed to corporate holdings 5 years ago. Tax purposes. It's technically company property, which means it's now your property. I sat back, mind reeling.
The house.
The workshop. Everything they'd tried to take from me was legally mine. Darian? You still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Papers will be delivered tomorrow morning. Official. Stamped. Uncontestable. Your family will receive copies simultaneously. Tomorrow morning. The last day of their 2-day deadline. Perfect timing. Thanks, Marceline. Darian, she paused. Are you okay? This is big. I looked around the workshop. At grandfather's old chair.
At the tools that had shaped my life.
At the clock I'd made that nobody wanted. I didn't ask for this, I said quietly. I just wanted them to see me. I know. But now they will, whether they want to or not. After she hung up, I sat in the silence. Just me and the ghosts of better days. Grandfather's voice echoed in memory. Builders don't just raise walls, son. We raise foundations. Tomorrow, this family would learn their foundation had shifted. And I was the earthquake they never saw coming. Have you ever had to stand up to your family? Tell me your story below. The countdown clock in my head ticked like a bomb. 48 hours. That's what they'd given me. I'd spent the first 24 remembering. The second 24 preparing. Now, with less than a day left, I was executing. Marceline had been clear. The documents go official at 9 a.m. Delivered by courier to all parties simultaneously. They'll know before they've finished their coffee. I timed everything else around that moment. At 7 a.m., I started packing. Not everything, just the things that mattered. Grandfather's carved animals. Photos from before money poisoned everything. My tools, obviously. Each wrench and hammer wrapped carefully, like I was handling memories instead of metal. The workshop felt different now. Lighter somehow, like it knew it was about to be freed. My phone buzzed constantly. Celine, Dad wants to know if you need help with boxes. Feeling generous. Mom, please come to breakfast. We should talk. Celine again. Never mind, he changed his mind. Clock's ticking, Darian. I muted their messages. Let them think I was scrambling. Let them believe their victory was secure. At 8 a.m., I loaded my truck. The important stuff went in first, grandfather's things, my personal tools, the wooden clock nobody wanted. Then the boxes of clothes, books, random pieces of a life lived in the margins of someone else's success. Neighbors watched from their yards. Mrs. Chun from next door waved sadly. She'd known me since I was 7, probably thought I was being kicked out. She wasn't wrong, technically. Moving out, Darian, she called. Something like that. I called back. By 8:45, I was parked down the street, watching the house from my truck. Waiting. The courier van pulled up at 8:57. Right on time. A woman in a professional uniform carrying 3 large manila envelopes. She rang the doorbell. My heart hammered. Through the window, I saw Dad answer. Still in his bathrobe. He took the envelope, confused. Signed the electronic pad. The courier handed him the other 2 envelopes, probably marked for Mom and Celine, and left. I watched him tear the first envelope open. Even from this distance, I saw the color drain from his face. His mouth moved, probably yelling for Mom. She appeared in the doorway, hair still in curlers. He shoved papers at her. Her hand flew to her mouth. Celine came running from somewhere inside, phone in hand, probably mid-post about her exciting new life. She grabbed the papers from Mom. The phone dropped from her hand. I should have felt triumph. Should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. My phone erupted. Calls from all 3 of them. Texts flooding in. Dad, call me now. Mom, this can't be real. Celine, what did you do? Dad again. This is fake. Our lawyer will destroy this. Celine, you backstabbing piece of. Mom, please, we need to talk. I turned my phone face down and waited. At 9:30, a black sedan pulled up. Marceline stepped out, crisp suit, briefcase, every inch the professional. She'd insisted on being there for the confrontation. You'll need a witness, she'd said, and possibly a shield. I got out of my truck and met her at the walkway. Ready, she asked.
No.
But let's do it anyway. We walked to the door together. I didn't knock, just used my key. Still my house, after all.
For now.
The scene inside was chaos. Papers scattered across the dining room table. Mom sitting with her head in her hands. Dad pacing, phone pressed to his ear. Arguing with someone, probably his lawyer. Celine standing by the window, arms crossed, face red with fury. They all froze when they saw me. You, Celine hissed. Morning, I said calmly. Dad ended his call, jabbed a finger at me. What the hell is this? What did you do? I nodded to Marceline. She set her briefcase on the table, the same table where they'd humiliated me 48 hours ago, and pulled out another set of documents. These are certified copies of ownership transfer documents filed with the county clerk yesterday at 3 p.m. and approved this morning at 9 a.m. Darian Harold Lowe is now majority owner of Lowe Construction LLC and all holdings therein. That's impossible, Dad sputtered. I own this company. I built it. You built it on a foundation your father gave you, I interrupted quietly. A foundation he transferred to me 15 years ago. I pulled grandfather's letter from my jacket, unfolded it, set it on the table. He knew what you'd become, what you'd do. So he made sure the family legacy stayed with someone who remembered what it meant. Mom picked up the letter with shaking hands, started reading. Tears spilled down her cheeks. This isn't legal, Celine snapped. Our lawyer will. We'll tell you exactly what mine just did. Marceline cut in. The deed is ironclad. Notarized.
Filed.
Uncontestable. Your grandfather had every right to transfer his assets as he saw fit. He chose Darian. But the house, Dad's voice cracked, is corporate property, I said. Has been for 5 years. You transferred it for tax reasons, remember? Which means it now falls under my ownership too. The silence was deafening. Celine's face twisted. You planned this. You sneaky, manipulative. No, I said firmly. I hoped I'd never have to use it. I kept quiet for 6 months, wishing you'd see me. Really see me. But you gave me 2 days to disappear. So here we are. Dad collapsed into a chair. I don't understand. I know, I said softly. That's the problem. You stopped understanding a long time ago. Mom looked up from grandfather's letter, mascara running. What happens now? I met her eyes. Saw the fear there. The regret maybe. Now, I said slowly, you have a choice. What would you say in this moment? Comment below, I want to hear your thoughts. You have a choice, I repeated, my voice steady in the suffocating silence of that dining room. Dad looked up from his chair, eyes red-rimmed. A choice. You can stay here.
For now.
Until you figure things out. I paused, letting the weight of it sink in. I won't throw you out the way you tried to throw me out. Celine's laugh was sharp, disbelieving. Oh, how generous. You steal everything, and then act like you're doing us a favor. I didn't steal anything. I kept my voice level. Grandfather gave me what he knew I'd protect. What you'd have sold off piece by piece. That's not true, isn't it? I turned to her. You were already planning to gut the workshop. Turn it into a yoga studio, remember? Donate Dad's tools to Goodwill for a tax write-off. Her face flushed. Colton shifted uncomfortably beside her. Mom stood, hands trembling. Darian, please. We made a mistake. We were wrong about everything. But you can't just... Can't what? Take what's legally mine? That's exactly what you were doing to me. It's different. Why? Because you're my parents? Because family means you get to erase me without consequences. The words came out harder than I'd intended. Sharper. But they needed to hear them. Marceline cleared her throat professionally. Mr. Lowe, Darian, has proposed letting you remain in the residence for 60 days while you secure alternative housing. That's significantly more generous than the 2 days you offered him. Dad's hands covered his face. His shoulders shook. For a moment I saw him as he used to be, the man who'd taught me to hold a hammer, who'd ruffled my hair and called me his little builder. Before money and fear and Celine's manipulation had twisted everything. I don't want to destroy you, I said quietly. I just wanted you to see what you were destroying. Mom moved toward me, hand outstretched. Sweetheart, we can fix this. We can. Fix what, Mom? The fact that you chose her over me? I gestured toward Celine. That you believed I was worthless? That you gave me 48 hours to disappear from the house I helped build? We didn't mean. You meant exactly what you said. You just didn't expect consequences. Celine's voice cut through, cold and venomous. You think you've won? You think we'll just accept this? I met her gaze. You can fight it. Hire lawyers. Waste money you don't have anymore. Or you can accept that grandfather saw through you years ago and made sure the family legacy stayed with someone who'd honor it. Honor it. She stepped closer, trembling with rage. You don't know the first thing about running a company. You'll drive it into the ground within a year. Maybe. Or maybe I'll remember what Dad forgot. That construction isn't about profit margins. It's about building things that last. Dad's voice came out broken. Why didn't you tell me? About the deed? About grandfather's letter? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to my messages, started reading. March 15th. Dad, can we talk about the company? No response. April 3rd. Want to grab lunch? Been thinking about the future. Read, no reply. May 22nd. Miss working with you. Workshop feels empty. Ignored. I looked up. I tried. For 6 months. You were too busy planning how to cut me out to notice I was trying to stay in. The silence that followed felt like broken glass, sharp, scattered, impossible to put back together. Marceline packed her briefcase. My office will be in touch with formalities. Property transfer, financial arrangements, all of it. I suggest you secure legal counsel. She nodded to me and left. I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of what used to be my family. 60 days, I said finally. That's what I'm offering. Use it wisely. I turned toward the door. Darian, Dad's voice stopped me. I looked back. His face was a map of regret. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The words should have felt like victory, like vindication. Instead, they just felt sad. I know, Dad, but sorry doesn't rebuild what you demolished. I walked out into the morning sun, leaving them in the house that was now mine but had never felt less like home. Behind me, I heard Mom crying, Dad's heavy breathing, Celine's furious muttering, the sound of a family breaking apart. And somehow I was the one holding the hammer. Ever had to choose between being right and being kind? Drop your story below. The papers arrived by the stack over the next few days. Transfer documents, ownership records, bank account authorizations. Every piece of the empire my father had built, now with my signature required. I signed them in the workshop, surrounded by sawdust and memories. Marceline walked me through each one. This gives you access to corporate accounts. This one transfers the property deeds. This is payroll authorization. You'll need to review the staff roster. Staff roster, I repeated, the weight of it hitting me. How many people work for us? 47 currently. Construction crews, office staff, accountants. All depending on these signatures to keep their paychecks coming. 47 families. Mortgages. Kids in school. Lives built on the foundation of low construction. The responsibility felt like concrete drying on my shoulders. Your father ran a tight ship, Marceline continued. Profitable. Well-respected. The company's in good shape financially. But there are some concerns. Like what? She pulled out another file. 3 pending lawsuits. Quality disputes on recent projects. Nothing catastrophic, but Dad's been cutting corners lately. Cheaper materials. Faster timelines. The work's suffering. I flipped through inspection reports. Failed code checks. Customer complaints. Each page a betrayal of everything grandfather had built the company on. He was trying to maximize profit, Marceline explained. Probably preparing for retirement. But he forgot why people hired low construction in the first place. I closed the file. Because we didn't cut corners. Exactly. I leaned back, mind racing. Can we fix it? The lawsuits?
Probably.
Settle, make it right, eat the cost. The reputation? That'll take longer. But yes, it's fixable. If you're willing to do the work. I looked around the workshop. At the quality Dad and I used to demand from ourselves. That's the only way I know how to work. Over the next week, I barely slept. Days were spent at the company office, a place I'd visited maybe twice in my life. Dad's office, now mine, felt like wearing someone else's clothes. Too big, too formal, too everything. The staff eyed me warily. Some knew who I was. Most didn't. The whispers followed me through hallways. That's the son. I heard he stole the company. Harold's devastated. I called an all-hands meeting on Friday. 47 people crammed into the conference room. Worried faces. Crossed arms. The kind of defensive posture people take when they think they're about to be fired. I stood at the front, no notes, no prepared speech. My name's Darian Lowe. I'm Harold's son. And, as of last week, I'm now majority owner of this company. Murmurs rippled through the room. I know there are rumors. Let me be clear. I didn't steal anything. My grandfather, many of you probably remember him, transferred ownership to me 15 years ago. It only became official now because family's complicated. A few nervous laughs. I'm not a businessman. I'm a builder. I've spent 40 years in a workshop, not a boardroom. But I know one thing, I know what this company used to stand for. Quality. Integrity. Work that lasts. I pulled out one of the inspection reports. We've been failing that standard. And that stops now. The room went dead quiet. I'm not here to fire anyone. I'm here to fix what's broken. Starting with how we build. We go back to the old standards. The ones my grandfather set. Better materials, better timelines, better work. Yes, it'll cost more. Yes, it'll take longer. But our reputation is worth more than quarterly profits. A hand raised in the back. Mike Torres, one of the senior foremen. I recognized him from years ago. What about the lawsuits? He asked. We settle them.
Make the work right.
Whatever it costs. That's on me. And Harold. The question everyone wanted to ask. My father built something incredible. He just lost sight of why it mattered. I'm not here to erase what he did. I'm here to remember what he forgot. After the meeting, Mike approached me. Gray hair, calloused hands, the look of someone who'd spent decades on job sites. Your grandfather was a good man, he said. Taught me everything about concrete work. I stayed with this company because of men like him. Like you used to be, working alongside us. Used to be? Before your dad pushed you out. We noticed. Wondered why you stopped coming around. My throat tightened. Complicated family stuff. Always is. He extended his hand. Welcome back, boss. Let's build something worth being proud of again. We shook hands, his grip firm, honest, the handshake of real workers. As I drove home that night, I passed the old house. The lights were on. Through the window, I saw shadows moving. Mom's setting the table. Dad sitting in his chair. Celine probably upstairs, planning her next move. 60 days. That's what I'd given them. Part of me wondered if I'd been too soft. Too forgiving. But grandfather's voice whispered in memory, strength isn't just about being hard, son. Sometimes it's about being strong enough to be kind. I kept driving, toward the small apartment I'd rented across town. Nothing fancy. Just clean and quiet and mine. The wooden clock sat on the kitchen counter, ticking steadily. Time builds everything, I'd engraved. Even second chances. Have you ever had to rebuild something from scratch? Share your journey in the comments. 3 weeks into my new life as owner of Lowe Construction, the house sold. Not the family estate, that was still in the 60-day limbo I'd granted my parents. But the old house. The original Lowe family home, where grandfather had raised Dad. A small 2-story on Elm Street that had been sitting empty for years, rented out occasionally, but never quite feeling like anything but a monument to the past. I'd listed it quietly. Needed the capital to settle the lawsuits and upgrade our material suppliers back to quality standards. The day it closed, I drove past it one last time. The new owners, a young couple with a baby, were already moving in. The man was unloading boxes while his wife directed traffic, baby on her hip. They looked happy, hopeful, like they were building something, like we used to be.
My phone rang. Mom.
I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hi, Mom. Her voice was small, tired. The movers are coming next week. We found a condo, downtown, 2 bedrooms. That's good. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. Your father wants to talk to you, she said finally. He's struggling, Darian. The doctor says it's depression. He barely eats, barely speaks. Guilt twisted in my gut. Mom, I'm not asking you to forgive us. Or forget. He needs to see you. To say things he should have said a long time ago. I pulled over, hands tight on the steering wheel. Whenever you can. We're not going anywhere. A bitter laugh. Literally. That Sunday I went. The house felt different. Emptier. Moving boxes stacked in every room. Furniture tagged for donation. The physical dismantling of 40 years in one place. Dad sat on the back porch, his porch, the one we'd rebuilt together when I was 19. He looked smaller somehow. Grayer. Older than his 75 years. Hi, Dad. He turned, eyes lighting up briefly before shame pulled them back down. You came. Mom said you wanted to talk. I did. I do. He gestured to the chair beside him.
Sit.
I sat, keeping space between us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Just watched the backyard where I'd learned to use a level, where we'd built a treehouse for Celine that she'd used exactly twice. I forgot what mattered, Dad said finally. Somewhere between building the company and trying to protect it, I forgot what I was protecting in the first place. I stayed quiet, letting him work through it. Your grandfather tried to tell me, years ago, said I was building walls instead of bridges, that I was so focused on the empire, I was forgetting the kingdom. He laughed hollow. I thought he was being sentimental. Old man nonsense. He was right, though. He was always right. Dad's hands trembled. I was scared, Darian. Scared of dying. Scared of leaving your mother with nothing. Scared that you, his voice cracked. Scared that you'd waste it like I thought I'd wasted my youth. I never wanted to waste anything. I just wanted to build. Like you taught me. I know. I see that now. But then Celine was there, with her plans and her confidence, and you were just quiet. Like always. I mistook your peace for ambition. You mistook silence for weakness. He nodded, tears spilling. And I'm so sorry. God, Darian, I'm so sorry for all of it. For the dinner. For the ultimatum. For not seeing you when you were standing right in front of me. The apology sat between us, heavy and overdue. Part of me wanted to accept it immediately, to hug him and pretend the hurt would disappear. But another part, the part that had spent 2 days packing up 40 years, the part that had been erased by the people who were supposed to see me, that part wasn't ready. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. But sorry doesn't rebuild trust, Dad. That takes time. And work. I know.
Do you? Because you taught me that.
You taught me that fixing something right takes longer than breaking it. That quality can't be rushed. He wiped his eyes. I taught you better than I lived.
Yeah.
You did. We sat there as the sun dipped lower, painting the backyard in orange and gold. The company's doing better, I said eventually. Settled 2 of the lawsuits. 3rd one's close. We're back to full quality materials. Timelines are longer, but the work's solid again. Mike Torres called me. Said you're doing good. Real good. Mike's a good man. They all are. I just forgot to treat them that way. Dad turned to me. Are you happy? Running things.
Was I?
I thought about the late nights reviewing blueprints. The early mornings on job sites. The responsibility of 47 families depending on my decisions. I'm doing what I was meant to do, I said. Whether that's happy or not, I'm still figuring out. Dad nodded slowly. Your grandfather would be proud. Would you be? The question hung there, vulnerable and necessary. Dad's face crumpled. I'm already proud. I was always proud. I just couldn't see past my own fear to tell you. Something in my chest loosened. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. The condo Mom mentioned, I said. You need help moving? He looked at me, surprised. You do that. You're still my father. That didn't change just because everything else did. Fresh tears. Thank you. I stood to leave, then paused. Dad, that clock I made? The one I brought to dinner? I still have it. In my bedroom. I wind it every night.
Good.
Don't forget what it means. As I walked away, I heard him whisper. Time builds everything, even forgiveness. I didn't correct him. Just kept walking, carrying the weight of what was broken and what might, someday, be rebuilt. Forgiveness isn't instant. It's work. Have you had to rebuild trust with someone?
Tell me about it.
The letter arrived 6 months after I'd taken over the company. Plain white envelope. Celine's handwriting. No return address. I almost threw it away. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, made me open it. Darian, I know I have no right to contact you. No right to expect you'll even read this. But I need to say things I should have said a long time ago.
I'm sorry.
Not the fake sorry I gave when lawyers were involved. Real sorry. The kind that keeps me up at night, replaying every moment I was cruel to you. I was jealous. You were always Dad's shadow, learning, building, being the son he actually connected with. I got the attention, but you got the respect. And I hated you for it. So I took everything I could. Manipulated Mom, played on Dad's fears, convinced them you were wasting your life because admitting you were building something real meant admitting I wasn't. Colton left me. Said he couldn't recognize who I'd become. The condo we're renting? I'm there alone now. Mom and Dad are in a smaller place. We're not a family anymore. We're just people who used to be related. And that's on me as much as anyone. I don't expect forgiveness. Don't expect you to respond. Just needed you to know you were always the better one. The stronger one. And I'm sorry I spent so long pretending otherwise. Celine. I read it 3 times. Felt the anger I'd carried for months start to shift into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly. But understanding, maybe.
I didn't respond. Not yet.
But I kept the letter. Tucked it into Grandfather's safe, next to his letter to me. 2 pieces of family honesty, decades apart. The company continued to grow. Word spread that Low Construction was back to its original standards. Quality work. Fair prices. Honest timelines. We hired 6 new people. Started an apprenticeship program for young builders, something Grandfather had always wanted, but Dad had never prioritized. I spent 3 days a week on job sites, working alongside the crews. Hands dirty, muscles sore, feeling more alive than I had in years. The rest of the week was office work. Boring but necessary. Budgets, contracts, insurance. The business side of building. Mike Torres became my unofficial right hand. He knew the crews, knew the work, knew when I was about to make a stupid decision and needed redirecting. You're doing good, boss, he said one afternoon, both of us covered in concrete dust. Different than Harold, but good. Different how? You remember we're building for people, not profit margins. Harold forgot that toward the end. We were standing in front of a new community center we'd just broken ground on. Pro bono work, something else Dad had stopped doing. Grandfather always said every building tells a story, I replied. I want ours to be worth reading. One evening, I visited Mom and Dad's new place. Small but clean. Simple but comfortable. Dad answered, looking healthier than he had in months. Physical therapy was working. The depression was lifting. He'd even started woodworking again, small projects, nothing elaborate, but the fact that he was creating something mattered. Look at this, he said, showing me a small jewelry box. For your mother's birthday. First thing I've made in 15 years. The craftsmanship was rough, but genuine. I could see him in it. The man he used to be. It's good, Dad. Really good. We had dinner, Mom's pot roast, my favorite as a kid. Conversation was easier now. Lighter. Still careful around certain topics, but healing. Celine wrote you? Mom asked.
Yeah.
Did you respond?
Not yet.
Maybe someday. Mom nodded, understanding. She's trying. Therapy, job hunting. It's hard for her, accepting that manipulation doesn't work anymore. She'll figure it out. Or she won't. That's her journey. Dad cleared his throat. The business. It's doing well? Really well. We just landed the Morrison Tower contract. Biggest project we've had in 5 years. Pride flickered across his face. That's incredible, son. Couldn't have done it without the foundation you built. I'm just remembering why it mattered. After dinner, Dad walked me to my truck. I don't expect you to forget, he said quietly. What we did. What I did. But I hope someday you can remember the good parts too. The workshop. The lessons. The years before I lost my way. I looked at him, really looked. Saw the old man he was becoming. The regret he carried. The father he was trying to be again. I haven't forgotten the good parts, Dad. They're what kept me going through the bad ones. He hugged me. First time in years. I hugged back. As I drove home, I passed the old family estate. New owners had moved in, another family, hopefully learning from our mistakes. The wooden clock ticked on my dashboard now. I'd brought it everywhere. A reminder of time's patient work. Grandfather's voice echoed. Time builds everything. Even families. Even second chances. Maybe he was right. Maybe some foundations, no matter how cracked, could be repaired. If you were willing to do the work. Healing takes time. What's something you're still working to repair? Share below. Your story might help someone else. 5 years later, I stood in front of Grandfather's grave for the first time since taking over the company. The headstone was simple. Just his name, dates, and the phrase he'd lived by. Build more than walls. I kept my promise, I said quietly, brushing leaves from the marble. The company's thriving. We're doing work that matters. Quality stuff. The kind you'd be proud of. Wind rustled through the cemetery trees. Dad's doing better. He and Mom are happy in their little place. He's even building again, small stuff, but it counts. Celine's still figuring things out. But she's trying. I set down the small wooden box I'd brought, a jewelry box made from the same oak as the clock. Inside was a handwritten note, for the man who saw me when no one else did. Thank you for the foundation. The house sold to a good family. They've got kids. I drive by sometimes, see them in the yard. Building tree forts. Playing. Being what we used to be. A crow called from somewhere above. I renamed the company.
Hope you don't mind.
Low Legacy Builders. Felt right. Honoring where we came from while moving forward. I knelt, hand on the cool stone. You were right about everything. About Dad losing his way. About Celine. About me needing to be strong enough to stand up when the time came. I hated you for putting that burden on me, but I understand now. Some lessons can't be taught. They have to be lived. The sun broke through clouds, warm on my back. The apprenticeship program's growing. We've got 12 kids now, learning real craftsmanship. I tell them about you, about how you taught me that every nail matters. Every measurement counts. Every building tells a story. I stood, brushing dirt from my knees. I'm not angry anymore. At Dad.
At them.
At you for leaving me with this mess. I'm just grateful. For the foundation. For the lesson. For remembering that silence isn't weakness. It's just patience waiting for the right moment. As I walked back to my truck, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Sunday dinner? Your mother's making pot roast. I smiled, typing back. I'll be there. The drive back took me past the old workshop. Now headquarters for Low Legacy Builders. Expanded, updated, but still the same bones. The same space where Grandfather and I used to sit, where Dad taught me to measure twice and cut once. Young apprentices worked inside. I could see them through the windows. Learning. Building. Carrying forward what we'd almost lost. The wooden clock sat on my desk now, ticking steadily in the corner office I'd finally gotten comfortable in. Above it hung a framed photo. Grandfather, Dad, and me, all 3 generations covered in sawdust, smiling at the camera. Back when we were builders first and family second. Or maybe we'd been family all along, just forgot how to build it right. My assistant knocked. Morrison Tower just passed final inspection. Perfect marks.
Good.
Let the crew know bonus checks go out Friday. Will do, boss.
Boss.
I'd gotten used to that title. Not because of power, but because of responsibility. 47 employees had become 73. 73 families depending on decisions I made. I didn't take that lightly. The sun set through my office window, painting everything gold. Ending one day, promising another. I thought about the dinner where they'd given me 2 days. The humiliation. The betrayal. The moment everything changed. If I could go back, would I change it? Maybe.
Probably.
But maybe not. Because that moment, that terrible, painful moment, had shown me who I was. Not the quiet son in the background. Not the disappointment they'd labeled me, but the builder. The keeper of foundations. The one who remembered what mattered. Years later, when journalists asked about the hostile takeover of Low Construction, I'd just smile and say, I didn't take anything. I just took back what was already mine. And left them with what they'd earned. A chance to rebuild. Because here's what I learned. Revenge is easy. Justice is satisfying. But redemption? Redemption is the hardest build of all. It takes time. Patience. Forgiveness you don't feel ready for. Work when you'd rather walk away. But if you do it right, if you measure twice and cut once, what you build can last. Not just for you, but for the generations that come after. The wooden clock chimed softly. 6 p.m. Time to go home. To Sunday dinner. To family that was still cracked but slowly, carefully being repaired. One nail at a time. One day at a time. Building more than walls. Building legacy. This story ends, but yours continues. What foundation are you building? What legacy will you leave? Share your journey below. Inspire someone else to start building too. And if this story moved you, subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more powerful stories coming that'll remind you, silence isn't weakness. It's strength waiting for the right moment. Hit that subscribe button. Join the family. And let's build something worth remembering together.